everybody.
Hi.
I'm Eric Aldrich. I teach literature and writing at Pima, and I'm really thankful to Elliot and Sam for putting this together, having me out here tonight. And now I'm going to read you a story. This picture features itself in my story. Here we go. The story's called I Can Hear Music. Breathing in, I drew the mountain air through my nose as I swayed from dusk to evening in a hammock, high in the Catalina Mountains above Tucson swelter. The wind came tinged with dry pine needles. Owls foghorned back and forth. Closing my eyes, I let the air slip from my mouth, focusing on sensations only accessible to a person in the wilderness alone. Well, maybe not entirely alone. I had the Beach Boys. On the drive to the trailhead, I've been listening to their song, I Can Hear Music. Choral crooning serenaded me as I sat on the tailgate of my truck, lacing my boots. This is the way I always dreamed it would be. The song was thoroughly stuck in my head. I love sleeping outside, so rather than come up to hike at dawn with my friends Molly and Rebecca, I spent the night in the mountains with plans to meet up in the morning. I arrived at the trailhead before dusk, hiked in 3 or 4 miles, and set up camp, alone. The wind petered out. My friends texted an ocean sunset on Cape Cod. The phone said 8:45 p.m. I pointed my phone camera through the pine branches toward the stars and sent the mountaintop sky in return. Being alone meant no one judged me for texting. My phone didn't have much signal and the text was pending when I shut it down for the night. I closed my eyes and the Beach Boys plays in my head. The sounds of the city, baby, seem to disappear. I woke up in darkness with my stomach migrated into my esophagus. My hammock features bug netting that zippers closed, so I sleep in a hanging cocoon. Choking down nausea, my fingers found the slider and unzipped just in time. I retched into the brown pine needle ground right where my feet would go if I swung them out to stand. I'd seen a bear while camping the previous weekend. At dusk, I glanced over and thought, who's way out here with a big dog? Then a millisecond later, I realized, oh shit, that's a bear. The memory's still fresh. I used a pine bark tile to shovel my sickness away from camp. Maybe the swaying hammock disrupted my equilibrium, I thought. Maybe I'd slept through my motion sickness until it was too late. My headlight cut a tunnel through the hall of ponderosa pillars as I hunted for a bag I'd slung in a tree away from bears and raccoons. The light illuminated it, swaying in the darkness like a Blair Witch omen. I brought the bag down, swallowed 3 pink Pepto pills. When I returned to the hammock, I tightened it to reduce swinging. The Beach Boys continued. The way that it is, oh, when you are holding me. My stomach remained high in my throat. Snakes writhed in my gut. I checked my phone, 12:35 a.m. My text to friends never went through. I considered hiking back to the truck, but clambering over rocks in darkness felt like panic. I should rest at my campsite and walk out at the sun's first light. I made the decision to let sleep creep back over me. But, as the Beach Boys threatened, I close my eyes and here it comes again. And again the sickness came. This time it never let up. Wind charged over the mountain, cascading around me. My headlight's jagged movement on gray tree trunks contributed to my nausea. My brain shunted fear to keep oriented on the campsite. In place of fear, the Beach Boys kept on, over and over. I was sick every 10 to 15 minutes for the remainder of the night. Unable to tolerate the hammock's motion, I moved my sleeping bag to the ground. Moon glare drowned out the stars so bright it shone through closed eyelids. Shivering from wind and illness, I crawled into my sleeping bag and passed out. I came to soon after, soaked with sweat. The inside of the bag is wet as a plastic tarp in the rain. With great effort and breaks for sickness, I changed into dry clothes and lay on top of the bag. On the ground, eyes closed or open, my mind replayed the following thoughts. I wish I wasn't alone. Thank God I'm alone. Should I hike out? Molly and Rebecca will be here in the morning. They can help me. I can hear music, sweet, sweet music. Should I call 911? I don't have any signal. I'm so sick. I'm a terrible, selfish husband. My family, my mom would be devastated. Loving you keeps me satisfied. I don't want Molly and Rebecca to see me like this. It's good that they know I'm here, though. It's not that serious. Maybe I should hike out. No, I can survive my current situation, and I should not add additional risks. And I can't explain, oh no, the way I'm feeling inside. Actually, I could explain the way I felt inside. My friends had been hospitalized with this illness, and I had accidentally contracted it from them. They also had a young baby who had suffered from the same sickness. How did a baby survive this, I thought. That thought occurred to me many times throughout the night. Even hospitalized, she was so small. I couldn't think of her going through it. That was beyond my level of endurance then. The next time I saw her, her antics and blossoming imagination showed no impact, her laughter undiminished. I talked to her parents about it before and after. They certainly haven't forgotten. One of my perseverations while lying on the ground letting the ants and spiders crawl over me was how they needed to know that I didn't hold any anger toward them. By the time dawn lit the path, I was packed and lying on the ground waiting for the light. As the sun rose and the birds shouted to each other and a fine mist dissipated from the canyon's billion leaves and needles, every root and rock posed a challenge underfoot. I forgot miles, concentrated only on increasing the distance traveled between episodes of sickness, until finally my truck came into view. The hike usually took me about an hour to cover downhill, but this trip took way longer. Throughout it all, the Beach Boys never quit. I can hear music, sweet, sweet music. When I reached the truck, I sat on the bumper and endured a violent bout. I'd been forcing myself to sip water on the assumption that some would be absorbed before I expelled it, but I barely kept any down. My stomach had been empty for hours, my abdominal muscles cramped severely. My head throbbed. I checked my phone. No signal. Sound judgment left me then as I started the truck in search of cell signal. Pausing periodically to be sick, I slow rolled a couple miles, willing my attention to stay present on the road, ignoring my nausea. Then as I rounded a curve in the road, I remembered Molly and Rebecca. I pulled onto the gravel shoulder and parked the truck. Still no cell signal. Maybe I had time to make it back to the trailhead, I considered. Somehow, I'd forgotten about my friends. I hadn't been parked long before they drove by. Molly says Rebecca spotted me first and asked, "Is that Eric's truck?" Later, Molly told me, "You looked white and green and sweaty, just really pale and shaken. Your head was hanging kind of funny to one side and your jaw was slack. You weren't saying much, so it was hard to judge your mental state. You seemed ready to collapse. I thought you might pass out." Apparently, I had texted them to let them know I was sick and I would not be joining them, a message they understood to mean that I'd stayed at home. I had no recollection of sending the text, but when I checked my phone, I saw I had sent it just before dawn. Rebecca quickly decided to drive me home. I don't think she wanted to wait for an ambulance, and it wasn't entirely clear how bad off I was. The moment I knew I wasn't alone anymore was one of the most profound feelings of gratitude and relief I've ever known. I still feel embarrassed that my friends saw my disgusting illness, and I feel considerable guilt for endangering Rebecca, but despite my regrets, I'm thankful for a witness to confirm and fill in my memories. Rebecca later described finding me like this: "You were in the front seat. You hadn't gotten out. I think I kind of had the sense you didn't really know what you needed to do, what had to happen. And when I offered to take you down the mountain, there really wasn't much hesitation. But with COVID, we weren't really sure what to do. And so when I suggested that you get in the back of your own truck, you were actually still relieved, even though that was a terrible ride." At the time, I'd totally forgotten about COVID. I thought I was in the back of the truck to keep Rebecca from getting gastroenteritis. This was July, so when we descended the mountaintop into Tucson, the temperature was 100 degrees. Inside the camper shell, it was even hotter as we lurched through stop-and-go traffic, a red light every quarter mile, and asphalt patched and potholed. I grew even more disoriented, but the Beach Boys never ceased. The sounds of the city, baby, seem to disappear. Rebecca recalls our ride better than I do. The memory I have was driving down the mountain, and I would look in the rearview mirror, or if there was a stop finally when we got down the mountain, I would turn around and look at you, and there was this sad, hunched-over man in the back of the truck who looked hot and, don't take this the wrong way, you know, like when you have a dog panting in the back of the truck? It was really sad. The memory of that ride is quite hazy. I faded in and out of consciousness. Eventually, I made it to urgent care where the nurse practitioner gave me Zofran in a complete 100cc bag of fluids intravenously. The combination provided relief. That's not to say my recovery was quick, though. I was wiped out by fatigue and gastrointestinal pain for days. My digestion took weeks to return to normal. I know other people have endured and survived much worse, but I also know the ER staff told my poor friends who gave this to me that the strain of viral gastroenteritis was really severe. I vowed to make better choices in the future, consider the circumstances from more angles before taking risks that could cause me harm. Sincere as I was in my resolve, I soon failed. A few months later, after recuperating from the gastroenteritis, I tore a peroneal tendon in my left ankle jumping a metal rail to catch up to a moving freight train. Just like with the gastroenteritis, I was alone at the time. Even following surgery, I haven't been able to walk without pain in my left foot due to permanent arthritis from the injury. Over the years, I've been stung by scorpions, snapped a finger in half, had another digit chomped by a dog, walked every toenail off my feet, some more than once, impaled myself on a blue agave spike like a Shrike-killed mouse, and suffered a paragliding collision with a dead cholla. Months later, in early autumn, I sat on a flat rock atop a small hill overlooking an arroyo near our house. The Catalinas crumpled against the northeast horizon, green fading to gold flowing foothills. Tucson blinked geometrically across my foreground, glimmering freight trains racing semis on Interstate 10, roads and buildings blinking. Dejected from my foot injury, I closed my eyes, breathed in slowly through my nose and let the air slip from my mouth to mix with the wind. A vehicle on a nearby street passed, brass horns and accordions swelling and receding as it went. I can hear music, I thought. In my brain, auto-played the tune. There it was again, not the Beach Boys' biggest hit, but the most played track in my head. My mind returned to the moon blazing through the pines, the cold wind, the knife in my stomach, my shame and gratitude for Rebecca's help, and the sounds of the city, baby, seemed to disappear. Breathing in slowly, I thanked the Beach Boys. Something in me chose to punctuate my suffering with that song, and I believe it helped prevent me from spiraling. Such a ridiculous song to have stuck in my head through such extremity. The DJ in my mind turned the volume on the track all the way down as I let my breath go out. Breathing in, I imagined the smell of dry ponderosa pine needles. I opened my eyes and let the distant view of the Catalinas on the far side of Tucson replace the images of my campsite. Exhaling, I listened until I heard the wind hissing through the spines of the swirl beside me, becoming present in my desert surroundings. Breathing in, I felt the air move through my lungs, enter my bloodstream, and course its way through my gut. No residual pain. My mind need not remember what my body had forgotten, at least not while clearing my mind in a pocket of urban nature. The stabbing pain in my foot reminded me of a more recent incident, one I chose to ignore by breathing out. Breathing in, I felt the shame of my sickness, for my disruptive disregard, for my disgusting physical state, for endangering my friends. I exhaled to let those feelings pass, at least for that moment. But even as I breathed in again, a shard of shame remained, like a prickly pear needle broken off beneath the skin. Breathing in, I asked myself, what is this shame? What is this heaviness in my breath and my gut and my shoulders, this stiffness in my forehead, this urge to clench my eyes? My suffering had passed. What is this that remains? How does it persist, and why? I breathed out. Breathing in, I let the shame go as the pain had gone. I tried to let everything pass from my awareness and be at peace. Breathing out, the sounds of the city, baby, seemed to disappear. And I want to thank Rebecca, she's back there. Thanks for saving me and thanks for coming.